This is James Fox with another video tutorial for QuickBooks Pro 2013. In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to create a progressive invoice. Now, a progressive invoice is an invoice that allows you to bill your customers in increments of the total sale rather than billing them all at once. Now, the progressive invoice is based on an estimate, so you must create an estimate first in order to create a progressive invoice. And that's what we're going to do first. Now, to create an estimate and a progressive invoice, you must enable the Create Estimates option. Now, to do that, click on the Edit menu and then click Preferences. In the left pane, click on Jobs and Estimates and then click the Company Preferences tab here. Now, here you're going to see the question that asks, do you create estimates? Select Yes. And to the right of that, you're going to see the question that asks, do you do progress invoicing? Make sure you select Yes to that also, and then click OK. Now, QuickBooks must close all of the open windows to change the preferences, so click OK. Now, to bring up the QuickBooks home page, click on the Home icon on the icon bar, and you will now see the Estimates icon here. To create an estimate, you can click on the Estimates icon, or you can click on the Customers menu and then click Create Estimates. Now, in Lesson 6-9, I showed you how to create an estimate. So create an estimate just like we did in Lesson 6-9, and then save the estimate. Now, here is a sample estimate that I have already created. The first line item is a tangible item, that being the red roses. And the second line item is a service item, which is hedge trimming. Now, I'm going to use this estimate to create a progress invoice. So click Save and Close at the bottom. And now I'm going to click on the Create Invoices icon here. Now type in the name of the customer that you created an estimate for, and you now want to turn it into a progress invoice. Now, the name of my previous customer from my sample estimate was Dewey Company. So I'm going to type in Dewey Company. Now, after you type in the name of the customer, you're going to see the Available Estimates dialog box. And in this box, you're going to see a list of the estimates that you created for the customer. Select the estimate that you want to use for your progressive invoice, and then click OK. You will now see the Create Progress Invoice based on an estimate dialog box, and there are three options. The first option is to create an invoice for the entire estimate. This option will create a new invoice for the entire amount of the estimate. And that option is pretty much self-explanatory. So whatever items and price was on your estimate is going to be the same items and price and quantity on your invoice. So choose this option if you want to create an invoice for the entire amount of the estimate. The second option is to create an invoice for a percentage of the entire estimate. Now, this option will allow you to enter a percentage, and an invoice will be created based on the percentage that you entered. Now, I'm going to show you how to use this option first, and then I'll come back in a few minutes to show you how to use the last option. Now, with option number 2 selected, I'm going to enter the number 25, which means that the customer will be billed for 25% of the estimate, and then click OK. Now, let's take a look at this invoice because we need to make some changes to it. If you take a look at the first line item, which is red roses, in the quantity column, you'll see 0.75. Now, the question that you should ask is, can you sell 3/4 of a rose? Now, if you're using progressive invoicing, then the customer will understand why the quantity for a tangible item is a fraction, which means that you can leave it like it is. But if you need to make changes to products such as red roses, then you're going to click on the Progress button on the ribbon just above the invoice to make your changes. Now, this first section is based on the estimate. The estimate was created for 3 red roses and 3 hedge trimmings. The estimated rate is shown here in this section, and the total estimated amount is also shown here in this section. Now, the next section is the total amount based on what has already been invoiced to the customer. So if you take a look in the second section, you'll see 0 in the prior quantity column and no amount in the prior amount column. That's because we have not created any progress invoices for this customer just yet. Now the last section is the current rate section, which can be adjusted if needed. So if I take a look at my red roses line item here, in the quantity section, here's the 0.75 that I spoke of earlier. But since the red rose is a tangible product, Joe's Landscaping cannot sell 0.75 of a red rose. So I'm going to change this from 0.75 to the number 1. So to change the quantity, simply delete the current quantity and then enter the quantity that you want to bill them for and press the Tab key on your keyboard. And you will immediately see the change in the amount column here. So make all of your necessary changes and then click OK. Now in the quantity column for my red roses, I've got a whole number of 1. The price each is 50 and the amount is 50. And this is the invoice that I'm going to send to my customer, so I'm going to click Save and Close. Now I'm going to bill my customer for the remaining amount of the estimate. So to do that, click on the Create Invoices icon again. Type in the name of the customer and press the Tab key on your keyboard. And in the Available Estimates dialog box, select the estimate that you need to continue to bill for, and then click OK. Now, a few moments ago, when this dialog box appeared, the first option was Create Invoice for the entire estimate. Now, if you take a look at it, you'll see that that has changed to Create an Invoice for the remaining amounts of the estimate. That's what I'm going to choose. And then click OK. Now everything here represents the remaining amount of the estimate. The estimate had 3 red roses, but I billed the customer for 1 red rose on the previous invoice. Additionally, on the previous invoice, I billed the customer for 0.75 or 3/4 of a hedge trimming. Now here's the invoice that I'm going to use to bill my customer. Before we save this invoice, click on the Progress button on the ribbon just above the invoice. And let's take a look at our progress. Now we previously billed the customer for 1 red rose and the total amount was $50. Additionally, we previously billed them for 0.75 of the hedge trimming, which is a service item, and that total came to $562.50. The next section is what we're currently billing them for. This is going to be the amount of the current invoice. We are currently billing them for 2 red roses at $50 each, totaling $100. And we're also billing them for 2.25 of the hedge trimming at a rate of $750 each, totaling $1,687.50. If you don't need to make any adjustments, click OK, and then save and close your invoice. Okay, so now we've gone through the first 2 options. The first option was to create an invoice for the entire amount of the estimate. The second option allows you to enter in a percentage, and you can adjust the quantity if needed. So now I'm going to show you how to use the third option when creating a progressive invoice. So select the third option, which is to create an invoice for selected items or for different percentages of each item. Now the difference between this option and the previous option is that in the previous option you entered in a percentage and then you adjusted the line items as needed. In this option, we're going to adjust the line items from the beginning. So I'm going to select the third option and then click OK. Now here is the Specify Invoice Amounts dialog box, which is the same dialog box that we saw a few moments ago. The first thing that I'm going to do is place a check mark in the Show Percentage box. And if you take a look to the right, you'll see a current percentage column and a total percentage column. Now once again, the first section is based on the estimate. The second section is the total amount of what we previously billed the customer. And the third section is what we are currently billing the customer. Now I want to bill the customer for 2 red roses. So I'm going to type in the number 2 in the quantity column. And let's say I want to bill the customer for half of the hedge trimming service that we have provided. So in the current percentage column, I'm going to type in the number 50. Now let's take a look at what we're going to be billing the customer based on what we just entered. I'm billing the customer for 2 red roses at a rate of $50 each, totaling $100. Now QuickBooks automatically calculated the current percentage, which is 66%. The second line item, which is the hedge trimming item, I entered in the number 50 in the current percentage column. and QuickBooks automatically calculated the quantity, which is 1.5 times the rate, which is $7.50, and the amount comes to $1,125. So our invoice is going to be based on everything in this section here. If you have made all of your changes, click OK, and now you see the invoice has been created. Now if there's any reason that you need to make any more changes to the quantity or the percentage after you have closed out the dialog box, go to the Template menu and click the drop-down arrow and select the Progress Invoice template. The columns in this template is exactly what you just saw in the Specify Invoice Amounts dialog box a second ago. So if you need to make any further changes, you can do so by using this template. If not, click Save and Close. Now I'm going to bill the customer for the remaining amount of the estimate, just like I did a few minutes ago. So click the Create Invoices icon on the QuickBooks home page, type in the name of the customer, select your estimate, and then click OK, and select the first option if you need to create an invoice for the remaining amounts of the estimate, and then click OK. Now here's the invoice for the remaining amount of the estimate. I still have the Progress Invoice template selected. If you don't need to use it, you can go back to the Intuit Product Invoice. If you take a look in the quantity column, you'll see 1 red rose. The estimate had 3. I've already billed the customer for 2, so I've got 1 red rose remaining. Now in the quantity column for hedge trimming, you'll see 1.5. That's because I previously billed the customer for 50% of the hedge trimming. If I click on the Progress button on the ribbon just above the invoice, and if I look in the second section, I can see what I previously invoiced the customer for, which were 2 red roses and 1.5 hedge trimming. Now if you don't need to make any adjustments, just click OK, and then click Save and Close at the bottom. And that's how you create a progressive invoice. If you have any questions, send me an email. Once again, this is James Fox, and I'll see you next time.